This is the obligatory family.
Mine is
I'm Bob Tremblay. I'm a volunteer at NASA Solutions Ambassador. I'm a local amateur astronomer. I've come to Conn's in 78, 79. I'm a member of the Warren Astronomical Society. I am a real big solar observing enthusiast. How many of you guys are looking at my scope this afternoon to see the sun? Excellent. Cool. I am also a meteorite collector. I'm going to be passing some of those around. We're doing a lot of astronomy outreach in the past 2 years, increasing amounts, and I've been coming to conventions recently, and hopefully I'll be doing that a lot more. Near-Earth objects are a real big thing with me, and I might be talking a little bit about those later. All right, urban astronomy is a nice way of saying, wow, light pollution is really crappy around here. You can only see very few things. It's a politically correct term. Now, you guys might be aware of the messy designations for some things, M1, Crab Nebula, M5. Well, something we in Michigan have to deal with is M0. We've been seeing a lot of that lately, and I'm hoping it's clear tonight, because afterwards I was intending on going out, but as I was out in the car to pick the stuff up and bring it in here, it was clouding over. Okay, as I said, one of my favorite things is the sun, and this is a picture. These are two pictures by Alan Friedman. He's an amateur astronomer in New York who has much better equipment than me. This is for an upcoming book from his. This is interesting because it shows a photosphere here, which is what you see through my white light telescope there, and then it shows the coronasphere, which you see through my other telescope. And you'll notice it's a little farther out, a few thousand miles further out, and that is what you're seeing. This is actually not the sun today, this is the sun yesterday. But there's a sunspot group that was throwing off some X-class flares that is just rotated out of view. And this large group here has been rotating into view. It was about here today when people were looking. Okay, that is the sun and hydrate alpha. This is from the Solar Dynamics Observatory, and there were some really huge prominences yesterday, and some people got to see some really cool ones today too. I'm getting these images from the SDL site. You can get all of them. They have current data and movies and everything. It's very cool, the SDL site. Let's go to SDL data there. Whatever you want. That's that sunspot group that's coming into view. All sunspot groups are named. This one's 1731. It's actually, I can't remember, but it's been on the sun since it went around and it got renamed. That is the sun in visible light. That is the sun in angry ultraviolet. You'll notice the difference here. The sun in visible light, the photosphere looks flat and there's not a whole lot going on. But when you take a look in ultraviolet there, it's just going crazy. You see coronal loops, you see lumps all over the sun. Very, very cool. There's that sunspot group that's angling away, and again, there's an angry ultraviolet. And so this is throwing about that huge magnetic field throwing off a lot of stars. There's a really cool prominence hanging off the top. And a really huge prominence hanging off the side. It's kind of like what we saw. This picture I took a couple years ago with my solar telescope. Some folks actually took some pictures with my scope like this. This is before I started doing it with the camera and the camera adapter. I was holding up the camera. There's a full image picture I've taken recently, and there's a really cool prominence. There's an out of focus sunspot group. I've gotten better now, and I'm using focus on my PC. I've got a lot better shit. NASA's having a year-long program that's unfortunately named Sun Earth Day year-long program. They're doing this year. They've been concentrating on the fact that we're heading for the solar maximum, and the sun's just been very, very active lately. Some great movies showing one of those too. Some of the stuff you can see in the sky. The moon, obviously. We're going to see this tonight. This was taken by me a couple of years last year. And the moon would pretty much look like that tonight. It's a couple of days past full. This was full on Thursday. And that was a picture of the full moon. High contrast on Thursday. It was also called the pink full moon. picture not because white all over goes, anybody seen flocks? I haven't seen them yet. They come out? No. It also has some bizarre names, and I have no idea why the fish. Okay. Yesterday, Thursday, there's also a partial moon visible on the other side of the planet, but very partial. That's about what we got to see. When you're observing the moon, it's a lot better when the moon is at first quarter and third quarter, because you have a nice terminator. You can see the mountains and craters a lot better. I personally think this is one of the best pictures I've ever taken of the moon. This picture was taken in 1992 when Galileo did a flyby. And I sent this to my wife's classroom, and she said to me that this doesn't give people a good example of the distance between the Earth and the Moon. So I went out and I got one, and that is the actual distance and size between the Earth and the Moon. A lot different than you might think by looking at that picture. That's Saturn. We got to see that last night. That's a photograph I took of it. My scope there is really not suited to doing astrophotography. That's about the best I got. But what's interesting about this picture is you take a look at that, and it looks a lot like the ears that Galileo said that he saw on Saturn. And you can see why he would have thought that. That is taken very recently by someone who has much better equipment than me. I'm very jealous. That's an amateur. I believe Christopher Go is the guy that saw the asteroid impact into Jupiter like months ago or about a year ago. I think that was the guy. Meteors. We had a meteor shower recently, but meteors are, how many of you have seen a meteor? All right. Meteor is caused by a piece of cosmic dust entering the atmosphere, getting really, really hot and vaporizing. They leave a glowing trail, and generally they're just, and if you're lucky if you see them. Meteorites, and I have some here, I'll pass these around. Meteorites are what you get when a meteor hits the ground. This is a meteorite from FWC. This was 50,000 kilogram fall. There's lots of pieces of this. This nickel iron. And if you want to know what the core of the Earth is made out of, you're looking at it. The core of the Earth is a 3,000 mile ball of that stuff. This is a slice, that's the piece I have right here. This is a slice from the same fall. What you're seeing here is a witness dot pattern. That's a pattern of crystallization in the metal that occurs in 0G over the course of millions of years of cooling. You cannot recreate this in the lab because of that. We don't have millions of years to wait yet. If somebody started it, they're going to be waiting their descendants. They might not look like humans. We're finally going to get some of that. This is like a stony, and it's got flecks of metal in it. The meteorite from Russia is probably very similar to that. And this is the fall from China. That's also an iron, like the one that's going around that way. This is a palisade. This is an interesting piece. This is a slice that's got peridot in it. Got crystal, it's got metal and crystallization in it. Yes, it's very beautiful. I want to make a good frame for this so I don't have to do this. So anyway, I collect meteorites. I've got a lot of nice samples at home. I take them. Oh, by the way, speaking of meteorites, how many of you did my Vesta talk yesterday? I forgot to pass this around. This is a 3D printed model of the asteroid Vesta. When a meteor burns up in the atmosphere, sometimes you'll get a little bit of this meteorite dust falling down, and they're called micrometeorites. Tons and tons and tons of this enter the upper atmosphere every year and burn up. And some of them make them to the ground, and they can be really beautiful, and they're everywhere. You can find these things by running a magnet through your gutters. Fireballs, brighter than usual. IAU is the International Astronomical Unit, finds it is brighter than any of the planets, which usually means Venus, because it's pretty much the brightest one. Here's an example of a daylight fireball in '72. I remember this happening, and every time I see that guy, I think Bill Gates for some reason. that meteor was seen over that track, so it had a very long trail. And if you saw my talk at Confusion, I made a mistake. I mispronounced that. It's bolide. Bolide is a type of fireball which explodes. And you might recognize that picture from the Russian thing that happened just recently. There is a spectacular picture of it from the astronomy picture of the day. That is also a spectacular picture. That's a meteor trail from it. And this happened just recently. It's an awesome video. You guys are at a rock concert in Argentina, and this thing comes in and blows up, and I think a lot of them thought it was a special effect.
Those that didn't probably did good pants.
With a comet, you can understand why it's exploding into the atmosphere, but what's the kind of speed of a meteorite?
The meteor that hit in Russia was a carbonaceous chondrite, which means rocky, and it doesn't have a whole lot of structural integrity like the iron ones that are going around here. So
it's like rain in the silo.
Pardon me?
Rain in the silo.
Yeah. It hit going. I think it was 35,000 miles an hour, and when a meteor or a meteorite hits the atmosphere, it's like hitting a brick wall. There's a whole lot of friction, and it's like slamming on the brake. And the stuff in the front fractured, the stuff in the back just kept right on going, and it's called pancaking. And that's what happened with the Russian meteor. It pancaked right there and blew up, and the rest of the pieces just kept on going. It cleared Russia. I want a piece of that. Real bad. This is something I just found out. In 1913, they were calling it the Great Meteor Procession. This thing was bizarre. It's a whole trail of fireballs that was seen over that track. Yeah, which kind of makes me wonder if it splashed down the Pacific, because that's following the curve of the Earth. That's not just grazing the atmosphere and leaving. I think that got captured and held and eventually splashed.
Oh, that's the Martian hurricane.
Meteor showers are caused when the Earth travels through the orbit of a comet, and when a comet goes by, it leaves a whole lot of tail, leaves a whole lot of stuff out there. Well, that stuff continues in the comet's orbit, and then when the Earth plows through that, that's when you get a meteor shower. And we have meteor showers that are quite predictable. We just had the lyrics recently. And I believe that fireball in Argentina was part of the lyrics. Meteor storms are pretty darn rare. There was one after the 1833 Leonids, and there were, instead of having tens to maybe 100 per hour, you had thousands every minute. I'd love them to see something like that. And I gotta wonder, 9 months later, if there's a higher birth rate. I really, really do. Well, this is a great infographic from the American Meteor Society. It explains the difference between a meteor and an asteroid. But the big thing is a meteoroid, something that's floating around in there that's microns to 10 meters is a meteoroid. Anything larger than that is an asteroid. Meteor is a bright flash, fireballs an even brighter one. Bolide is one that flows up, and a meteorite, the one that makes it all the way down. Comets. This is the one that just passed, Pan-STARRS. Anybody see Pan-STARRS? Did you have to see it naked eye, or did you have to use something? You saw it naked eye. I saw it through binoculars, and I brought my wife out, and it was a little tricky to spot, but in her case, it was right between the two houses. It point the binoculars there, go up, and there it was. And we didn't get to see it. And these are both from telescopes. That is what Pan-STARRS stands for. It's a telescope, it's a system looking at these kind of things. The other comet we're going to see is ISON, which you've probably been hearing about for about the century. We'll see. But there's its orbit. And I got this from this site down here. It has updated every month about where it's going to be. It is just inside the orbit of Jupiter. And that is what it looks like from the ground. Can you see it? Yeah, it's right there. You can barely see it. That's what it looks like from the ground, which is pretty crappy, so let's look at it with a big space telescope. That's what it looks like from the Hubble, and that was taken just recently. That is what done with some image processing. It was taken on the 10th. It's 94 million miles from the Earth. It's the size of the coma. The tail is 57,000 miles. And it itself is only 3 miles in diameter. It's going to pass by the sun. It's 680,000 miles, which is less than the diameter of the sun. And when it whips around there, it's going to be going 230 miles a second. Now, if it survives, when I read this, if it survives, that means if it doesn't do a shoemaker levy and break into bits, which it might, which would be really cool, it's going to pass within 40 million miles of the Earth, which is really very close. That's what it looks like now, and it's not even close. So that will be the comet of the century. That's what ISON stands for. It's a group of observatories in 10 different countries looking for and monitoring tracking objects and talking about NEOs and stuff. That's what comets are made out of. And they've been called dirty snowballs, but in a recent teleconference I've listened to, scientists are now calling them icy dirt balls. What do you call a comet that's lost all its volatiles? What I mean by volatiles are the frozen gases, the carbon monoxide, dioxide, and stuff like that. So what do you call a comet that's lost all that?
Rock.
A what?
Rock.
Pretty close. You call it an asteroid. Stupid astronomer joke. But that's true. When a comet has gone around enough times and it's lost all its volatile, what you've got is a very porous asteroid, essentially a rubble pile. Aurora, something else you can see. This is something I took October 24th, 2011. I was sitting home and got a call on Facebook, hey, we think we're seeing Aurora, so I'm like, take my brand new camera, which I didn't even know how to use out in the dark area out by my house. I'm taking pictures, and there's hardly anything there, and all of a sudden this thing just blows up over on my right, and I'm like, oh my God! And people driving north on I-94 to report here, I must have thought the sky was on fire, which is beautiful. This is taken very recently. That's Lake Superior. That's where I first saw old stomping grounds.
There's nothing like going out, spending all night smelting, getting fairly drunk, and sitting there drinking and watching the aurora.
My
Did
wife
you go to
and
Michigan Tech too?
Other school, I went to Northern Michigan.
As far up as we were.
Hold on. We had women at our school.
I would like to talk to you about that.
My wife and I actually took February off and drove to Alaska so we could see the aurora. It was worth
really,
it.
my wife and I blanket on Lake Superior, staring off stupid at auroras for hours.
You can be very poor in college up at Michigan Tech
Yes.
or Northern.
And enjoy it. Awesome. There's another shot, same thing I took. I just love that aurora. That's just awesome. I saw that. This was here. This was at 24 Mile Road.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how often do you see auroras actually creep down?
Here, I've seen it 4 times in the 14 years I've lived down here. 4 times, and this was the most. This had to have been the most spectacular aurora I've ever seen, and this blows away anything I saw up north. It was amazing.
There was supposed to be one visible just like last week or the week after, but
I
the
heard
cloud
something
cover
about
was
that.
so bad.
M0,
Right.
M0 strikes again.
Yeah, the cloud cover
got
was
it.
horrible.
I have some pictures from Ypsilanti from 2006 that you could see a naked eye, and they came out nice. And I didn't have a wide enough lens. I really wish I had a wide lens.
Oh, this is horrible for me because a brand new camera, and I didn't know how to use any of the exposure settings on it yet. You know, I didn't know where the time exposure was. I'm sitting here going, hold on, So anyway, iridium flares. Iridium flares is sunlight reflecting off a particular type of satellite. It looks like a meteor, but it's very precisely timed. That's the satellite. There's a fleet of 66 of them in a polar orbit. They're 780 miles up. They have all these panels, and they are incredibly reflective. And, well, they still reflect just fine. But these are very, very bright. They're localized. From what I have heard, if you're in a plane and your bulb or iridium flare is happening, it almost looks like a searchlight. going down these pictures. It's gotta be creepy. And they're like clockwork, day after the second. When you take a look at the iridium flares, they give you down to the second. And they only show up for a couple seconds, so you gotta be right there. I went at Astronomy League conventions last summer. I went to. We had one at 11 o'clock, and it was extremely well timed. The guy goes, and now when it's flashed, just like that. It was spectacular.
And some of them are daylight visible. So,
Oh, yeah.
you know, they're bright enough that you can see them in daylight sky.
I've seen them behind clouds of daylight. I mean,
Yeah, they're amazing.
because they-
Behind clouds.
It's
You see those
Yes.
things like any night
Really?
too.
Yes.
Any night that it's clear, you can go out and watch the sky and go watch them tracking.
Okay, the International Space Station is something else you can see, and you can see it's got a lot of reflective solar panels, and it's pretty darn big. I actually didn't know when I found out I didn't know it was that big. It's huge. So, International Space, somebody caught the International Space Station during an eclipse. That was visible for less than a second, so you know he had to time exactly where on the planet he was going to be to sit there. He was probably
if you're using a video camera and taking standard rates, you'll see maybe 2 frames
really.
that have because it goes by that fast.
Talk about luck. Wow, that's an awesome picture. So we are having some iridium flares tonight, but you'll note they are 3:47. I mean, they're very late. We had a couple last night. There is no ISSY hours. I'm sorry. So how do you find them? Well, you get your latitude and your longitude, however you want. I use this thing. You go to Heavens Above, and you type in your latitude and longitude for your observing location, and then you go back to the home page and you pick the satellite, and it gives you that. It's just that easy. And it's got a ton of different satellites too. One of the interesting things with it, I'm out with that scope. I can't count the number of times here I'm just looking around, scanning around, and the satellite goes, see my field of view, and I look up, I can't see it. That's happened a lot. So, local astronomy clubs. There is a whole bunch of them around here. There's a couple more than this, a lot of them around the West Coast. But the Great Lakes Association of Astronomy Clubs, or BLAC, consists of these clubs, my club and the Ford Club are very active. And
University of Low Browse is also
the
there.
crowd is there. I gotta make it to some of the meetings with these other clubs. I really do. If you want to find astronomy clubs across the U.S., you go there, the Night Sky Network, and they've got a huge number of astronomy clubs all over the place. This event just took place recently at Metro Beach. It's free. We generally bring our giant knob, and there's some presentations. We had a liquid nitrogen presentation, which was pretty cool. The spectral lines of hydrogen was spectacular. I've never seen that before. A guy had a tube of hydrogen and helium, and he lit it up, and he gave everybody diffraction grating lenses, and I got to see the spectral lines of a hydrogen and helium, and I've never seen that before. That was a really cool demonstration. The other thing they did was conservation of angular momentum. He took a very lithe young girl and gave her a big wheel, and the guy started spinning really fast, and she's on a wheelie chair, and she goes like that and starts turning. That was very cool to watch. International Astronomy Day. Again, very oddly named because it happens twice a year. Grassroots movement, and it's clubs, universities, planetariums, yada yada. They all host astronomy events. It's twice yearly. Just had one. The next one is October 13th. They usually are during the first quarter, so you have a nice observing target. The Warren Astronomical Society has an observatory at Wolcott Mill Metro Park. They have a free open house every second Saturday of the month, and so you can. That's their scope, which they're going to be replacing. It's a 12-inch reflector. They're getting a 12-inch refractor, and specifically purchased for astrophotography purposes. Can't wait for that. Kensington Astronomy at the Beach. This is one of the largest events in the region. It's put on by BLAC. We had this, take that and look around the entire lake about like that. There were scopes everywhere. There were thousands of people, and it was cold and rainy that weekend too. When it's not cold and rainy, I guess there's a whole bunch of people. That's my club's 22-inch Dob. It looks like a freaking cannon. That's all for the dock there, you don't need a ladder to, when it's up above about that far, you need a ladder to look through it. Last year, we had astronaut Andrew Foistel out, and he gave a presentation. He gave a private presentation to all the black members that were putting this thing on, and that was just awesome. He had some personal photos of the International Space Station that he'd taken, and one of them most impressive was the station going off that way, and here's this gigantic panel going off, and there's a guy. It was just unbelievable. June 5th of last year, we had the last transit of Venus that we're going to be seeing for a while. Sorry, guys, you missed it. We are out of the observatory, and there's my setup. I have my dial over here with solar filter and my PST, and here's a couple shots I took. Cranbrook has a brand new telescope. Actually, they have 3 brand new telescopes. This thing is I think that's the Lunt. That is a huge solar telescope. Take my little solar telescope and increase its size quite a bit. That is a Takahashi, that's a 6-inch reflector, and this is I think a 20-inch reflector. Now you'll see this is my astronomy club looking at it, so we got a picture. You'll note me with the gawk up at the solar telescope. What a great time for me. I was just they're going to be opening that up for us.
And that's just the counterbalance to the whole thing down there in front of.
Yeah, it's gigantic. The new dome and everything. They spent like $1 million on a very nice setup. Cranbrook is open to the public now. This new one is open to the public. They have first Friday of the month, making it free, and every Friday night they have public observing there. Pardon me, Cranbrook, which is Woodward by Long Lake. There are a bunch of observatories in Michigan. We have Stargate there. Cranbrook's is called Atchison. UofM has one. I'm going to the Dean Observatory for a lunch or dinner in June. And one of my goals is I want to hit every one of these and get pictures and just get some stories of the observatories. Maybe get some pictures through the scopes if they'll let me. That'd be nice. There's a lot more planetariums than this. I didn't know what to do about this, but there's a lot more planetariums in Michigan than I thought there were. And there's a website that has these on them, but they're all over the place. Okay, I'm buying a telescope. There's a lot of different types of telescopes you can get, and you really need to know you really got to ask yourself, what are you going to be doing with it? Are you casually observing? Do you want to do astrophotography? Now this is my dial. This is a push to rotisserie. It doesn't have a drive or anything like that, so every few seconds I got to put it out. And this thing is just a little refractor. That's about $100. I just want to have something that I could take with me easily. That's not incredibly easy to take with you. This one you can get for about $350 now. So this has seen a lot of use. So for what we paid for it 12 years ago, it's pretty good. There's a lot. What are you going to do? Frequency of use, ease of setup. There are some of the scopes require alignment and that kind of thing. Some of the newer go-tos. So you push a button, and then ready to go. I'm thinking maybe that's what I want to get. And transporting it. The step up from this 10-inch is a pain in the butt to transport, and it's real heavy. So what our club suggests you do is come to one of our open houses or find somebody that has a scope, use it, try it out first, and see what you think. You might go, oh God, I hate the way this works, and you're not going to want that. We do not want to see people buy scopes, use it once, maybe poorly, and never use it again. We do not want to see that.
Ann Arbor Public Library has telescopes on the land.
To lend, really? That's nice. Look, there's my scope. That's an 8-inch dive. It's great for beginners. It costs about $3.50. No motor drive. That's my hydrogen alpha scope. That's my solar scope. And this, you'll see when people that look through it, you'll see the sun in red because what you're seeing is that very narrow band. That's the hydrogen alpha band. The thing I was telling you about, the hydrogen spectrum. That is the frequency that thing filters, and that's the only thing you see. So observing tonight, if amateur was out there, we've got Saturn, we've got the moon, and we put on a really good show last night. And I didn't show this last night, but a shameless plug for my blog site. Any questions, comments?